Good morning. My name is Robert Sumwalt, and I'm a board member with the National Transportation Safety Board. And standing right here is Joe Sedor, S-E-D-O-R, S-E-D-O-R. Joe is the investigator in charge for this accident. I want to preview what we'll talk about in this press briefing. We will start out by activities of yesterday, what we have found. We will discuss the discussion of the fracture surfaces, and then we will wrap it up with a synopsis of what we have found on the recorders, the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. Now, yesterday was a very productive day for our investigators. We had a lot to do, and yesterday was very productive. We expect today to be equally as productive. Our structures group, one of the activities that they did was to go through the airplane and look at each of the oxygen generators overhead each row of passenger seats. There are oxygen generators. Each oxygen generator will supply oxygen for each row. 3 or 4 oxygen masks were attached to each oxygen generator. So one of the activities of our investigators was to go through the passenger cabin and look, and each of those oxygen generators at each row had been activated. So that's just something that we wanted to see if there was any problems in any of these units being activated, but all of them had been activated. The skin fracture. The skin fracture, the fracture area is 5 feet by 1 foot wide. And where the skin comes together on the aircraft, it doesn't just come together like this. It overlaps, and that is called a lap joint. And at each lap joint, there are 3 rows of rivets that run down the aircraft longitudinally. And we have clear evidence that the skin separated at the lower rivet line. A preliminary on-site examination reveals pre-existing fatigue along the entire fracture surface. And this is a term known in the industry as multi-site damage. This piece will undergo extensive follow-on inspection at the NTSB's materials lab in Washington, D.C. And to facilitate that inspection in Washington today, the structures group will begin laying out exactly where they want to cut this part out, and we expect that they will begin cutting it today, and maybe even have it completed by today. To give you an idea of what we're talking about, of course, we said that the fracture surface is about 5 by 1, so they're going to go larger than that area. So we anticipate that the area to be cut out will be 8 or 9 feet long by about 2 feet wide. The way they'll do that is they'll take a hand grinder. We'll use the mechanics from Southwest Airlines who will do this under the supervision of the NTSB. They'll go out with a hand grinder and actually start sawing or cutting along this predetermined area, and it will take about a day to do it. We expect 6 to 8 hours. After it's all said and done, this piece of skin that they're going to cut out, it's only going to weigh about 3 or 4 pounds. And it will be shipped to Washington overnight as soon as we retrieve it, so that they can begin a detailed examination in the materials lab. We are planning in some form or fashion to have a photo op of this piece after it's cut out, and Terry Williams will be giving you the details of that, how we will do that. Of course, our priorities are to extract the piece, and that will be a time-consuming task. I want to tell you a little bit about the information on the recorders. The recorders arrived at NTSB headquarters last night about 7 o'clock, and we had specialists standing by to receive the recorders when they came in. The cockpit voice recorder was a 2-hour solid-state recorder. Some are 30-minute CVRs. Some are 2-hour cockpit voice recorders. This one was, in fact, a 2-hour recording. We have good quality recording on it. The flight data recorder captured about 27 hours of recording, so we have good data on both recorders. And the incident was captured on both the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder. We're showing that the decompression happened approximately 18.5 minutes after takeoff. There were no overt abnormal indications prior to the event. The air crew, the flight crew responded to the loss of cabin pressure. They immediately donned their oxygen mask and declared an emergency. Let me check this one thing here. The aircraft descended from flight level from 36,000 feet to 11 minutes. The aircraft descended from 36,000 feet, which was its cruising altitude, to 11,000 feet in approximately 4.5 minutes. The aircraft then leveled off at 10,000 feet, or at 9,000 feet. And originally, the crew was contemplating landing at Phoenix as their diversion airport, but they ultimately decided to divert at Yuma after being briefed by the cabin crew as to the damage of the aircraft. The crew, before landing, they evaluated and found no controllability issues with the aircraft prior to landing, and they landed normally without incident. The pilot requested and received assistance as typical when you declare an emergency. A flight crew would request crash, the airport rescue and firefighting equipment to be standing by, and they had that equipment standing by here at the Yuma airport. To say that they contemplated, originally selected Phoenix as their divert airport, no, it wasn't a lot of time in that. They discussed landing in Phoenix, but quickly upon getting the assessment, decided to divert to Yuma because it was the closest suitable airport. So today will be a very busy day for our investigators. Meanwhile, our maintenance records group is working in Southwest Airlines headquarters, looking extensively at the maintenance records for this aircraft. That activity is going on. So that's where we are. A lot will be going on today, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
When you talk about the maintenance records, we're hearing reports today that in March 2010, that this particular aircraft had 8 instances of fatigue or cracking that was discovered in the frame, and then they were fixed by Southwest. Can you confirm that?
Well, the question is, in March of 2010, the question is, there's some reports out there in the media about some service difficulty reports being reported on this aircraft, and no, I cannot confirm that. That's coming from outside sources. Our maintenance records group has not looked at that particular issue yet, but they will. And so that's really what they're there to do. Yesterday was, it takes a while to sort of get spooled up and get all of the records from the operator. And so today I think will be a very productive day for the maintenance records groups. And they will be looking at the maintenance history. But no, we have no first-hand knowledge of those service difficulty reports that you mentioned. Right here, and then we'll go over here.
We heard that there was obviously the flight attendant injured. We also heard from outside sources that there was a passenger injured. Are you able to confirm that?
Well, the information that we can confirm is that there was one injury, and that was with a flight attendant. So that's all the information we have concerning injuries at this point. Next question.
Back to the fatigue cracks. How many were there? Were they big? Were they abnormal? Do you feel like can you elaborate on that just a little bit more?
The question concerns about how many fatigue cracks were there. Can we elaborate on that? And what I will say is that there was pre-existing fatigue along the entire fracture surface. So that's about as specific as I'm able to get at this point. We haven't gone through and made a detailed mapping of exactly where those cracks are. That's a very involved process and will likely not be done exactly here in Yuma. That's something that our materials lab will be doing. But we did find evidence of widespread cracking across this entire fracture surface.
Well, if there's widespread cracking, is it something that would, I mean, do you believe that the plane was then well maintained, or is this some sort of a sign that it wasn't as maintained as it should have been?
Well, was the aircraft well maintained and should have been maintained better? That is exactly why we are here, to look at why this problem occurred, why it was not detected, and why this event happened. So that's exactly why we are here, is to look at those issues.
Is it something on the surface that you could see during a normal, I mean, if there was a maintenance, routine maintenance that this plane goes through, were those fractures apparent? Were they someplace where they could be seen during a routine?
Well, could these cracks have been detected during routine maintenance? Bear in mind that there are various stages and phases of routine maintenance. There's an A check that's done about every other day. There's a B check that's done about every 100 hours. There's a C check that's done about every 500 hours. There's heavy maintenance. There are a lot of inspections that are done on the airplane. Bear in mind that by nature a lap joint is covered up. So just going out and looking at it with the naked eye, you're not going to be able to detect this because it's concealed. And that's the reason that the aircraft undergo heavy maintenance. The last heavy maintenance on this airplane was March of a year ago, and that's where the airplane is basically disassembled and every part and component is looked at. That would have most likely have been the last time that anybody would have looked up under here and seen this, because it is a concealed part of the aircraft. Yes, sir.
Are you going to recommend any curtailing of any more of 737s?
Well, first, are we going to recommend any curtailing of 737s? And we are here to look at the details surrounding this particular event. And, you know, we use a party system at the NTSB. Part of our investigation, by statute, the FAA is a party to our investigation. They are the regulator. They are the ones who make decisions concerning who can fly and what can fly. The FAA is part of our investigation, as is Boeing, as is Southwest Airlines. So all of these people, all of these organizations are represented, and that they are getting the information as we get it, so that will help those parties make decisions concerning the airworthiness of other airplanes in the fleet. There's a question here.
You're talking about the various types of checks, A, B, C. Is that standard among all of the airlines, or do the airlines, each individual carrier, sort of set their own? They, of course, follow FAA guidelines and whatnot, but are those checks mandatory between Southwest, American, or do they set their own sort of schedules?
The question is, are A, B, C checks, heavy maintenance checks, are those specific to Southwest, or are they pretty much common across all airlines? And each airline, as I understand it, establishes their own maintenance program that is then approved by the FAA. Generally speaking, I'd say it's accurate to say that most of the major airlines are using all of the major airlines are using a progressive maintenance inspection where things are looked at various phases and stages. So I'd say that the concept of progressive maintenance, A check, B check, C check, that's more than likely universal throughout the industry. I'll take two more questions.
But it's not uniform throughout, it's not uniform for all of the airlines.
I don't have enough information to say if that's uniform across all airlines. I don't have that information, but usually these programs are worked out in conjunction with the aircraft manufacturer and with the coordination and approval of the Federal Aviation Administration. Thank you.
Now, Southwest pulled about 80 of these aircraft yesterday to inspect them. Do you know if they found anything? And on this particular aircraft, did you find any other areas besides the damaged area that visually at least showed evidence of fracturing or stress problems?
Two-part question. As a result of the grounding of Southwest Airlines airplanes yesterday, did they find anything else? And I am not aware of any additional problems that Southwest has found. However, again, being that they're a party to the investigation, we would expect that if they are getting information, that they would be feeding that back to us. The second part of the question was, on this, on the accident airplane, have we found any additional areas of fatigue cracking? We will go and look at the areas adjacent to this particular fracture surface. We will look at those areas to see if there's any evidence of fractures as well. Last question? Yes, ma'am.
In terms of the flight path, where was it when the decompression started?
Where was the airplane when the decompression started? I don't have a map overlay of that, but I suspect you all have better information on that than I do by going on the internet. But we do know it was 36,000 feet. It was level. It was 18 and a half minutes after takeoff. So that's what we have now. Terry Williams, who you've met, will be putting out information regarding any possible photo ops and any follow-on press briefings that we will have. So I want to thank you very much for being here, and we'll try and be responsive to your phone inquiries best as we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you.